Aren't we lucky to have heard that original recording of a young man in 1574 at the dentist? And if you listen closely, he's doing the little mouthwash swill of purple liquid that they give you at the end of the dentist session. Minty fresh. Hello there, and welcome back to the final couplet with me, Theo Cowan. First of all, I've got some apologies to make, haven't I? You might have noticed that last week there wasn't an episode, and for that I am forever sorry. Here's what happened. I've been away. I recorded an episode ahead of time, and I forgot to do another one ahead of time because I was away for 2 weeks, having a good time on the whole, and filming some cool stuff. But I was gutted when I realised that I hadn't recorded an extra episode, and it was too late. Sunday passed and I didn't release an episode, and there's no excuses for that. I shouldn't ever have a week off from this podcast. I know that, and I'm sorry. I'll do better next time. And if there were people out there going, "Where the hell is Sonnet 70? I've got to do it for my exam in my A-levels," or "Oh God, I've just been dying to know what Sonnet 70 was all about, and this last week it's been killing me," then I'm sorry. I apologise. There it is. Here we are. We're back. And today, of course, we're looking at Sonnet 70, which should have been last week. And it's a bit of a milestone because it's a round number, and I just class the round numbers as milestones. So I think I should stop nattering on, and let's take a listen to Sonnet 70. That thou art blamed shall not be thy defect, for slander's mark was ever yet the fair. The ornament of beauty is suspect, a crow that flies in heaven's sweetest air. So thou be good, slander doth but approve thy worth the greater, being wooed of time. For canker vice the sweetest buds doth love, and thou presentest a pure unstained prime. Thou hast passed by the ambush of young days, either not assailed or victor being charged. Yet this thy praise cannot be so thy praise, to tie up envy evermore enlarged. If some suspect of ill masked not thy show, then thou alone kingdoms of hearts shouldst owe. So, there it is for you, Sonnet 70. And I think the main gist of this one is saying, look, people are going to be jealous of you if you're hot. That's a tale as old as time, isn't it? I mean, I know for one, being a sort of Brad Pitt lookalike, it's hard out there when you're this good looking. And I imagine all of you sitting at home have also had this problem of being just too hot and sexy, that people sort of try and find bad things about you. Everyone's looking to pick holes in your personality or the way you do things, etc. So that is what this is all about. It's really saying, look, mate, you are hot and pure and sexy and great, and people are going to bring you down, but you don't really deserve it. So that's sort of the overarching message, but I think it's time to dive into this and work out what the hell Shakespeare was going on about line by line. So we start with, that thou art blamed shall not be thy defect, for slander's mark was ever yet the fair, the ornament of beauty is suspect. So here I think he's saying, look, you know when people talk shit about you, it won't be held against you because Sexy, hot people have always been targeted. That's the issue. And beautiful people are always envied. Now, I've already got to challenge Shakespeare on this one because, look, I'm sure beautiful people are envied and people do talk about them behind their backs, etc. But I think that on the whole, they lead a pretty good life and they get things because they're hot. And that's something that we all know, right? I mean, like, good-looking people get better things. Maybe that's just a thought that I've had in the past, but often, you know, I'm talking jobs, stuff like that. I mean, they're gonna go with the hot person, aren't they? If they have a choice. Say there's two people in front of you, and one is really hot, and the other, they're good looking, but they're not, you know, as hot as the other one, and they're both on paper are exactly the same. I mean, you're gonna go with the hot one, aren't you? So I think Shakespeare's already talking a bit of shit here at the start of this sonnet. But let's carry on. A crow that flies in heaven's sweetest air. So this is carrying on from the previous 3 lines, and he's saying it's like a crow that is black in heaven's air. So the contrast of that, I believe, that is the crow being the rumours potentially, and the slander, and of course heaven's sweet air being the sexy man that Shakespeare talks of. That's what I get from that line. So thou be good. Slander doth but approve thy worth the greater, being wooed of time. And here he's saying, look, as long as you're good, as long as you do good things in your life, carry on doing what you're doing, slander will only confirm how great you are. Because it's just going to be like water off duck's back, isn't it? So the fact that you're getting all this attention and stuff is actually just proof that you're great. Because otherwise they wouldn't even talk about you at all, I think is what he's getting out there. For canker vice, the sweetest buds doth love. And this, of course, is a metaphor. So it's saying that the disease, a canker sore, will go for the most beautiful, sweetest buds and try and corrupt them. So corruption loves the most beautiful things. And thou presentest a pure, unstained prime. So that is linking on from that metaphor. And he's saying, you are the purest and completely unstained. And you're in your prime. Thou hast passed by the ambush of young days, either not assailed or victor being charged. So here he's going back to the recipient of the sonnet's youth, and he's saying, look, you've passed through all the dangers of youth, either unchallenged or victorious when challenged, when attacked. So you've done a great job in your youth to get through all of this. And that's hard. We all know how bloody hard it is being a teenager, right? Yet this thy praise cannot be so thy praise, to tie up envy evermore enlarged. So here he's saying, look, this praise I'm giving you, it won't give you such a reputation as to stop these people talking shit about you. They always will, all right? However much I praise you, however much I say how great you are, you're never going to get to a level where people aren't slagging you off. I'm sorry about that, but it's true. If some suspect of ill masked not thy show, then thou alone kingdoms of hearts shouldst owe. And that, of course, is the final couplet. And I think here he's saying, look, if your beauty wasn't masked by some suspicion, then you'd be the most beloved person on earth. And everyone would love you, and it would be insane. So it's only natural, I think, that people are suspicious of you, right? If that suspicion wasn't there, then you'd be untouchable. Sometimes the final couplet's great, and then sometimes it's this, you know. I think the meaning's good, but This line, if some suspect of ill masked not thy show, it doesn't feel good to read. And I'm sure, look, I know language has changed so much over the last 500 years, but I'm sure when the actor got the script and had a little read of that penultimate line, he must have thought, oh, that's going to be hard to say out loud on stage, isn't it? Anyway, that's enough of me slagging off Shakespeare. Look, he's great, all right? He's good. He's a good writer. So that there is Sonnet 70. There it is. And it's an interesting one. You know, he's talking about how beautiful people will get slagged off and will have people sort of gossiping about them. Because they're so good looking, people will feel like they need to say some bad things about them or find problems with them. Now, I think it's about time we put this to our story. If you remember, 2 weeks ago, the story was Shakespeare, he'd gone for dinner with Christopher Marlowe on the island of Barbados, and Christopher Marlowe had left him high and dry mid-meal. So Shakespeare sort of went out onto the beach, said a couple of sonnets. He went back into the restaurant, couldn't find Christopher Marlowe, was walking home and saw Christopher Marlowe with his mates having a right old laugh. And he thought, bloody hell, Christopher Marlowe has just left me in the lurch to go and hang out with his mates. That's not on. So what he did was, he went to Christopher Marlowe's house and he broke in and he left him Sonnet 69, which was all about how you got to hang out with the right people. If you hang out with bad people, that makes you bad. So that all makes sense. Christopher Marlowe, of course, has come back from being with his mates. He's gone into his house. He's seen someone's broken in and he's seen Sonnet 69 lying there and he's read it. So let's find out what Christopher Marlowe makes of Sonnet 69 and how Sonnet 70 fits into all of this. Christopher Marlowe finishes reading Sonnet 69. He looks about him. A couple of his drunk friends lay strewn on the floor. One of them has puked on himself. It's a horrible sight. He slowly walks out of his house and sees his friend Tom in the street. And Tom says, "Hey, Christopher, how you doing, mate? Oh, where's that Shakespeare fella gone? He's a weird one, isn't he? That's so funny you left him at dinner, wasn't it?" And then he fell over onto the floor, passed out. Christopher Marlowe thought to himself, you know what? This Shakespeare chap might be onto something. I am hanging around with, quite frankly, some of the worst men in the world. And they're all using me for my money and my house. And it's not on. They're making me a bad person. He suddenly realises that he needs to find Shakespeare and tell him exactly how he feels. But where would he be? Has he left the island yet? He starts running to the beach where Shakespeare first landed. He ran as fast as his little legs could carry him. Eventually, he made it to the beach and saw Shakespeare getting aboard a little ship to leave the island. Marlowe shouted, "Hey! Hey, Shakespeare! Wait!" And he ran across the sand. Obviously, running on sand was really hard, and it took him quite a long time to reach the boat. Maybe 10 minutes. And he was sweating profusely when he arrived. Shakespeare said, "Well, what do you want, Marlowe? I'm done with you. Did you not read Sonnet 69? And Marlowe said, "I did, Shakespeare. And it made me realise I've been hanging out with all the wrong men. They've been corrupting me." And before Shakespeare can answer, 5 or 6 of Christopher Marlowe's friends were out on the beach, and they were pointing and laughing at Shakespeare and Marlowe. And they were saying, "Hey Marlowe, look, you're talking to Shakespeare now, are you? What are you doing? I thought you said you didn't like him. Ugh, Shakespeare's gross. He's stinky." And Marlowe turned to them and said, "Hey, leave it alone. Leave off. He's all right." And they went, ooh, Marlowe likes Shakespeare." And then one of them said, "Come on, boys, let's leave Marlowe to it. He's a low-life, pathetic little worm anyway." As they left, a single tear rolled down Marlowe's face. And Shakespeare said, "Marlowe, listen to me. Leave this island. Come with me." "But Shakespeare, everything I have is on this island. Everyone I know is on this island." And Shakespeare says, "And look how they treat you. Like the dirt on the bottom of their shoes. They don't value you. They're just using you." And Marlowe said, "Oh, I don't know, Shakespeare. I mean, if only someone could write this in a sonnet to explain it to me, that might be simpler than plain words." And Shakespeare had a light bulb moment. He thought, "I shall put it in a sonnet, and I shall call it Sonnet 70, and it shall be all about how jealous Marlowe's friends are of his good looks and lovely nature." So he quickly pulled out a quill and penned Sonnet 70. By the time he'd finished writing, it was daybreak, and Christopher Marlowe had fallen asleep on the sand by the boat. Shakespeare gently woke him up and said, Hey, Christopher, I've written you a sonnet to explain everything." And Christopher Marlowe says, "Oh, I was a bit drunk last night. I get everything. I get what you were trying to say." And Shakespeare said, "Well, you did ask for a sonnet, so I have written it, and it did take me all night, so least you could do is listen to it." And Marlowe said, "Fine, read the bloody sonnet." Shakespeare cleared his throat and read Sonnet 70. When people talk shit about you, it won't be held against you, because sexy people have always been targeted. Beautiful people are always envied, a black crow that darkens heaven. As long as you're good, slander will only confirm your value. Corruption often loves the most beautiful things, and you are the most pure and unspoiled bloke. You've passed through the dangers of youth, either unchallenged or victorious when attacked. But this praise isn't all yours, since envy keeps growing and can't be silenced. If your beauty wasn't masked by some suspicion of wrongdoing, you would be the most beloved person on earth. So there it is, Sonnet 70. And look, I'm sorry again that you couldn't have had this episode last week to listen to, but what are you complaining about? You've got it now. Our story's certainly heating up, isn't it? Shakespeare has convinced Marlowe to maybe leave the island and come back to London with him. That would be a treat, wouldn't it? I can't wait to find out what happens in Sonnet 71. Until then, bye.